You know, this year's been a pretty interesting one for us already. We had quite a strong start to the year, I'd say. Maybe started a little bit at the end of December when we announced that we were shutting down our Flow network, but selling the spectrum to AT&T for over $1.9 billion. And the interesting part about that is that they're going to use the spectrum for a technology called supplemental downlink. And if you go to our booth, you can see how supplemental downlink works. It's essentially the idea that you would pair the uplink and with more than one downlink technology. So that's going to provide additional capacity, because as we know, traffic is very asymmetric and there's more data that goes down to the device than comes up. So exciting news there. Obviously we had the launch of LTE at Verizon, very strong launch, announcements of LTE smartphones. In addition to USB dongles, launched at Docomo as well. So that's also great to see. And then kind of to follow on to that, we bought spectrum in India, and really the idea there was to drive TD-LTE as a technology in India. That appears to have worked. There was a good announcement yesterday by 3 operators, including Bharti Airtel, talking about their commitment to TD-LTE. The other 2 operators were China Mobile and SoftBank. So already good momentum around that technology, and I think it's a sign that WiMAX isn't going to get any traction in India, and I think probably a story about how it's going to progress global is something similar to that. So we're happy to see TD-LTE get the traction there. Another announcement we made this year was the acquisition of Atheros. And a lot of people think that we bought Atheros because we had some gap in our chipset roadmap on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And in fact, we've already made the announcements of Snapdragons coming up with integrated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And what the acquisition of Atheros was about is our belief that as we've integrated more and more consumer electronics and computing functionality into the phone and reduced the cost and the size and the power, now we're going to see those chips proliferate into devices outside of the phone, into displays and speakers and lights and various content sources and all sorts of things, printers, access points. And Atheros has the products and sales channels for those markets. And so we see a great opportunity to add our technology to theirs, our products to theirs, to cross-pollinate between the two, but also to add those sales channels to the sales channels that we have already. We also announced at our earnings call we had a licensing dispute, one of 2 that we had been talking about. We resolved one of the 2. We significantly raised our financial guidance because of that. And we also announced on the Mirasol, we've been working on this display technology. So there's an announcement of nearly $1 billion investment in a new fab in Taiwan to build those displays, targeted for some time next year to see products rolling out of that factory. On the operating system side, we saw a lot of activity already this year. So obviously the iPhone launched at Verizon. We launched in conjunction with HP last week. We launched the WebOS, and their tablet, the touchpad, uses our 8660 dual-core Snapdragon processor. Obviously, big news at the conference is Windows Phone 7 and the Nokia deal with Microsoft. Snapdragon powers all the Windows Phone 7 devices as well. And CES this year, Microsoft also announced that they're porting big Windows onto the ARM platform, did demonstrations of big Windows running on top of Snapdragon as well. And finally, I just came from the HTC press conference right before this, and they showed off their new tablet design based off of our 8X55 chipset. They showed 6 devices, all of which were powered by Qualcomm Snapdragons, but the Flyer tablet that they showed off running at 1.5 gigahertz. So very exciting stuff going on that side as well. And those were Android based. So across the board, across all the different operating systems, a lot of excitement. Obviously, Steve's going to get into much more detail about what's going on the chipset side, because we've been making very, very significant investments on the chipset side. I think we've been talking a lot about growth drivers for Qualcomm's business, and there's really 5 key growth drivers that we see going forward, at least in the near term. And obviously, we've been really beneficiaries and drivers of the transition from 2G to 3G. We see roughly 1.2 billion subscribers using 3G right now. We look at that number probably doubling. Those are the estimates that are out there, roughly doubling over the next few years. We got about 85% of the world's networks now support 3G. And the other interesting thing, if you look from a handset shipment standpoint, we recently updated our guidance on that and said at the midpoint, we thought in the calendar year 2010, about 650 million 3G devices were sold out of roughly 1.4 billion total devices. For calendar 2011, we're projecting 775 million devices at the midpoint. And I think the projections, these are all analysts' projections, almost 1.5 billion devices. So we're gaining share in terms of 3G shipments in terms of handsets. So that continues to be a great story for us, but huge amount of growth, because we're at 1.2 billion subscribers out of roughly 5 billion subscribers. And so tremendous growth opportunity ahead of us still on 2G to 3G, and now we're starting to see even the beginnings of 4G rollout as well. Emerging markets is another significant growth driver for Qualcomm. We've seen the rollouts now of 3G in almost all regions. We're very excited by what's happened in China, very significant growth in China. Only about 15% of the 842 million subscribers in China use 3G today. But if you look at the aggressiveness of the operators there driving 3G, that's very exciting. And India, another market where we see